of a debacle has been Nintendo versus. Nintendo decided they wanted to do they're doing their online events, and they usually take commentators from existing grassroots events. So in this case, they got Vicky Kitty and Supergirl Kells to commentate this event for them. And then we see this quote retweet that happened minutes later from the Crimson Blur. So some context with Blur. Blur's been around for God knows how long. The dude's fucking ancient as far as I'm concerned. Was around, as far as I know, during the MLG days. MLG trying to sponsor Smash events, and Nintendo just getting in their way a bunch. Since then, Blur's become a lot less relevant. He was a pretty big commentator, from what I understand, in the 2014 to 2017 era, I think. Especially like in the Five Gods era. But Blur dropped out of popularity and standing in the scene in the last 2 to 3 years. But he makes this tweet. He still has a lot of historical backing. However, then he makes this tweet: "Hope the Nintendo money was worth it, SMH." And holy shit, Twitter exploded. Vicky is literally trending on Twitter because of this tweet. People defending her, defending the choice she made. I will say, I'm not involved in the inner workings of events at a top level, commentary, TO-wise, anything to that effect. So I'm really looking at a lot of this as objectively and as grounded as I can as, the low-level TO that I am. But Blur makes this tweet. So the first response you see here is TK Breezy saying, "That shmoney is fucking worth it." EE backing him up. These guys clearly have no problem taking Nintendo's money, which is very respectable. I think both of them have been on Nintendo-sanctioned events. The EVO and the Smash Invitational before Ultimate came out, I believe they commentated. Both of these guys are like, yeah, the money, it's worth it. It's completely worth it. And of course, some more background, I guess, on this is, Nintendo's done a lot of shutting down of events, a lot of shutting down PM events, completely destroyed Big House Online. And if you've been living under a rock in the Smash community and don't know this, that's been a huge issue. And a lot of people have taken to boycotting Nintendo. Then you see Vicky's response. "This is genuinely the most unprofessional take I've seen from you, and if you or Hugs want to talk more as to why I work with companies such as Nintendo, Blizzard, EA, I'll happily engage with both of you in that conversation. But to write something like this, when you and Nintendo hired me for the Twitch partner Nintendo events, this seems hypocritical." And obviously there's a little bit of back and forth about how the times have changed and how Nintendo's history is an experience. But largely people are slamming the shit out of Blur and Hugs for this one, which is fair. I think that there's I don't really think I can personally say what the right call here is, if Vicky is wrong for taking the money and going, or if Blur's right for calling him out and saying that we shouldn't be working with Nintendo whatsoever. I don't really have that perspective. I don't have that legacy, especially in the community, to know where that is. However, I think there are some interesting points to note here. So I did some digging kind of into Blur's history, or more into what he does for a living, because I was curious. And I found this on his Twitch. So, red homie, but you see both redacted and also redacted, one for sexual assault and the other for transphobia, I believe. So Crimson Blur suggests these streamers, kind of a bad form. Now, of course, this is something you kind of do on Twitch and then forget about for the next 5-6 years, but I thought this was hysterical. But second of all, I'm almost certain Blur has a job that is outside of esports now. So it's a lot easier for him to say when he has income unrelated to this, for him to call out people that are taking this. It's a lot easier for him to be on a high horse when it's on his livelihood and so on and so forth. Whereas Vicky, this is she is trying to make this her career. And if you look deeper into the commentating world, it's a fuck show. People like Sajam have gotten kicked out of Capcom events because they've raised a stink about issues that Capcom that they have with Capcom and their netcode. Of course, Nintendo takes this to an entirely different level in ceasing and desisting entire events. It's still, I think, respectable for Vicky to be trying to pursue this career, because if you look at how these events end up getting commentators. If their number one doesn't take the job, the number two and number three sure as hell will. It's not difficult for you to be replaced as a commentator in this situation. So now it's a question of, do you needlessly sacrifice your career for taking a stance where Nintendo doesn't really care either way, because they're still going to get their commentator and they're still going to run their event. So do you die on that hill, or do you take the approach of, let's try and be the change inside of the company? I have to work with copyright and licensing issue in my career field. I think Nintendo doing what they do is dumb, but the way Blur and Hug's going at is really, really dumb. No, I agree. It's not the way they're trying to take this almost persecution complex approach to it is not a good take for both of them, especially where they are in the community. And so yeah, Vicky's trending on Twitter, and if you scroll through some of these tweets, they're like, everyone's backing her up. I'm very happy for Vicky though. Like, I know she's worked hard. She deserves a spot if she can get it. And of course that money is not something you can turn your back on in that position, because commentary wages are terrible if you're not at the top level. So commentators don't really have the choice to pick and choose what they do at a top level, especially in Smash where there's no sponsorships outside of this. This is the only Nintendo sanctioned event where corporate money is flowing. So do you sacrifice all of that just for the sake of the revolution? All because hashtag fuck Nintendo? I don't think you can justify doing that on a professional level, unfortunately. But yeah, it's also like, Blur was around when Nintendo was really fucking around in the MLG days. So it hits a lot of the veterans closer to home than it does a lot of the Smash Ultimate and Smash 4 people. People like Vicky. Most of the Smash Ultimate people don't know the history behind who was the anonymous tweet that tweeted out all the things over the past, like, 20 years of Nintendo just shitting on Smash and the Smash community. But this is a lot more ingrained in people like Blur's and Hugs' mind, because I don't think this is necessarily an issue with the people at Nintendo Versus. They don't really have a say in any of this. So punishing those guys and calling them out isn't really going to help. Jordan Kent, like, he doesn't get to choose whether they cease and desist Big House or fucking Riptide, P+ from Riptide. That's not on these guys. Yeah, it's also one of those things where I really wonder if 2014 Blur had been like, yeah, we're going to sponsor a Brawl event, and we'd like you to commentate, and we'll pay you $30,000 to do it. I don't know what the fuck that number is, but I get the feeling Blur's taking that money in his situation. Now, granted, he used to work for Twitch, he used to work for Oxy. He has a living in esports that is unrelated to his commentary gigs. So I just don't think that I don't know if he was necessarily in a situation to call these guys out, being a full freelance person.